Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and boy, did we not expect this for the 5th sneak peek for the upcoming Spider-Man Far From Home update. And this is a pretty wild deviation from what everyone, myself included, was expecting. Now, just to give you a bit of backstory here before we get into this sneak peek, which you probably already know what it is, but in pretty much every update since Infinity War last year, when we were originally introduced to Tier 3 characters, every single update has had a Tier 3 character that is thematically linked to the update. So, you know, we have a Fantastic Four update, Mr. Fantastic gets his Tier 3. We have an X-Men update, Wolverine gets his Tier 3. We have another X-Men update, Jean Grey gets her Tier 3. You know, we have an update with the original characters, and Luna Snow and Sharon Rogers get their Tier 3 update. That's kind of how it goes. We've had a few in between that haven't felt as connected, so the Black Panther one really didn't have anything to do with that update, but that was just because the Black Panther movie came out right before Infinity War. And then, you know, we had Thor update. We had the Thor Tier 3 that was joined by the Ant-Man update. But we also had the Ant-Man Tier 3, which, of course, is linked to that update. So, yeah, every single update pretty much has had a character's Tier 3 match the update. Until now. We are apparently getting a Doctor Strange Tier 3. And as far as I know, Doctor Strange is not going to be in any part of the movie. Now, there is a possibility that by coincidence, Doctor Strange is in Far From Home, because Netmarble should not have, I don't believe they do have an advanced copy of the movie, so this should not actually link to anything, and this shouldn't be a spoiler in any way, shape, or form. It's impossible, because Netmarble does not watch the movie before the update. I mean, they've made this update almost a month earlier in order to get everything approved and in order to be able to create everything. You know, they're showing us the sneak peeks, but this was already confirmed and completed at least a week ago. So it's just impossible for that to be the case. So I think if Doctor Strange is mentioned even in passing in Far From Home, it's purely coincidental. But there is a small chance that happens because, you know, with Mysterio and with all that sort of quasi-magic or, you know, special effects that look like magic, and Mysterio does move around like Doctor Strange, he's got the green beams kind of like Doctor Strange, it might not be so odd for Spider-Man to mention in the movie. And we already know from the trailers that he mentions Thor, he mentions Captain Marvel, and he mentions someone else. And of course, Nick Fury says, busy, off-world, can't do it. You've got to step up and be the hero. So yeah, let's get into the actual sneak peek. It's pretty cool. It's got a little sound here, and you can see in the background, we've got the Tier 3 symbol there. So that pretty much seals the deal. It says T and then 3. T is there, and then 3 is there. I feel kind of goofy because we spent all that time going through the Mysterio sneak peek looking for a Tier 3, because we really all thought Mysterio was going to get his Tier 3 for sure, right? Mysterio, you know, he's a character that's a villain, and he doesn't have his Tier 3, and Spider-Man does, so it makes sense. We haven't had a villain Tier 3 since Thanos, and before that it was Magneto, you know, so yeah. No, completely wrong. Doctor Strange Tier 3, nothing to do with the update, everything to do with, I don't know. I'm going to try to give you guys some explanation for why I think they're choosing Doctor Strange here. But yeah, I'm not going to bother reading what's written on Netmarble or Twitter. It's not really anything that's super helpful or super indicative of what is going down. But we know Doctor Strange is going to be getting his Tier 3. There's a possibility, before we get into Doctor Strange, there is a possibility that we get 2 Tier 3s. We have gotten it for the Spider-Man and Iron Man update. That was part 2 of Infinity War. And then I mentioned again, we got Ant-Man and Thor for the Ant-Man and the Wasp MCU movie tie-in update. We had 2 Tier 3s then. And then we also had basically 2 Tier 3s in December of last year when we got Sharon Rogers. And then a couple weeks later, we got the rework to Luna Snow's Andromeda uniform, and we got Luna Snow. So there have been technically 3 updates so far in about 10 or 11 updates that have given us 2 Tier 3s, but every other update has only given us 1, so the chances are not very high for Mysterio. Now, having said that, what should you do? Well, nothing. You really shouldn't do anything. For those of you that have Doctor Strange already built up, great, just freeze it. For those of you that don't have Doctor Strange built up, don't build him up yet. There's no reason to start dumping resources into this character unless you love him and you're going to Tier 3 him regardless. If you have any sort of hesitation about Tier 3ing him, you should definitely wait, and it makes the most sense to wait because you can always spend the resources later. The only thing you should do for Doctor Strange now, if you haven't already done it, is get his gears to 20, not 25, get them to 20, and unlock his potential. You have some time now. You have a few days to start on his potential, get a head start if you're not already at 100% potential, so that you won't be waiting weeks to tier 3 the character like we were with Jean before. But I imagine that a lot of you, if you did rush to get Jean, you probably don't have enough blast books. And that's kind of the first biggest barrier on top of all the other barriers to getting him tier 3. Now, I got pretty lucky thus far. I've been playing Cull Obsidian a lot because I was thinking we were going to get Mysterio tier 3, so I have 5 blast books. So I'm halfway there. I'm not too worried about that. What I am worried about is the cost. So a lot of people are going to be asking what the cost is for Doctor Strange, and although a lot of his other costs are in line with regular tier 3 characters, I do think that he's going to cost 1200 CCF. I don't see Netmarble discounting him to 800. Just because they've discounted other things. So for those of you that are wondering what I'm talking about, Doctor Strange doesn't cost as much as other characters to rank up in terms of, pretty much everything. His gears, his uniform, his level 60 to level 70 potential just doesn't cost as much as some of these other characters. So with that being said, a lot of people have speculated that he's going to cost, or not a lot of people, but some people have already started speculating that he's going to cost less to tier 3. But let me just double check. It's 48 for rank 1 for a blast type. Do I have another? It's 64. So see, technically Doctor Strange should cost as much as Strife. Strife costs 64. Doctor Strange costs 48. So you can see there that Doctor Strange technically costs the same as Cable and these other sort of lower cost, I don't know what's going on there, but some of these other lower cost native tier 2s, despite the fact that he's technically a native tier 2 from an epic quest. So why have they chosen Doctor Strange? This is the next question. After addressing the fact that I personally think it's going to be 1200 CCF to tier 3 him, but some people say it's going to be 800, but it's definitely not going to be 1600. But why are they choosing Doctor Strange? Well, the first major reason I think is because all of the other epic quest characters have their tier 3, and this has kind of been a question that a lot of people have. Deadpool got his tier 3 right away, then Mr. Fantastic got his right away with his update. A couple updates later, Wolverine got his. Doctor Strange, the very first epic quest, and he's waiting till the end, so that does make sense. Secondly, we've had a pretty stable pattern. We had Combat Universal, Blast for the tier 3s this year. So it was either going to be, after Jean Grey Blast, it was either going to be Speed Blast, or Blast, Speed. So I'm guessing the next 2 tier 3s are going to be both speed types. I could be wrong, but that's just the feeling that I have. But them going with another blast type does make sense because it's the one that we have the fewest of now that we have all these other types besides Universal. We're still short on Universals, but that's because we generally have fewer Universal characters. The second reason why, or the third reason why I think they're choosing Doctor Strange is money. I honestly think they're choosing Doctor Strange because it costs more, and so players who want to get him immediately are going to have to shell out some actual real money to purchase the relay that comes out with every update, or they're going to need to purchase some premium packages to get those CCF, to get those tier 3 materials, because, this year alone, out of the 6 tier 3s that we've had, 5 of them have cost more than the base amount. So, the first update of the year, Mr. Fantastic, 1200 CCF. Captain Marvel, the only character from this update that cost 800 CCF to get to tier 3. And then since Captain Marvel, we've had Wolverine, which is 1200, Thanos, which is 1600, and then Jean Grey, which is 1600. If you include Doctor Strange, and if he is costing 1200 CCF, I mean, actually I don't even know if you include Doctor Strange. Anyways, with or without Doctor Strange, I think we're up to 8,000 CCF for the year for all of these characters. I'm actually going to do the math right now because it's actually pretty insane. So we had 3,200 for Jean Grey and Thanos, we had the 800 for Captain Marvel, and then we had another 2,400 for Mr. Fantastic and Wolverine, which is 6,400. So if Doctor Strange costs 800, it's a minimum of 7,200 CCF. If Doctor Strange costs 1,200, it's 7,600. So almost 8,000 CCF, and we're halfway through the year. So we still have another 5 or 6 tier 3s coming for the rest of the year. That's insane, but it definitely does make Netmarble more money because people are going to spend to push these characters to tier 3 instantly, and they can only do that. You can only accelerate your CCF by actually dropping cash. So whether you like that or not, you know, you take it for what it is, but that's probably one of their big incentives for choosing him. The good thing is, hopefully they'll stop doing this and they'll go back to some regular characters, because, you know, a lot of the original tier 3s were bad characters. You know, Captain America was so bad before he got his Infinity War uniform in his tier 3. Same thing goes for Iron Man and Spider-Man. Lately, we've just been getting characters that are already really strong. You know, Jean Grey, Thanos, and now, you know, Doctor Strange. These characters don't necessarily need tier 3s to compete with a lot of these other characters in the game. You know, Ant-Man was shit before he got his tier 3, and now he can barely compete with his tier 3. So I would really love to see them go back, you know, or at least for the rest of the year, and just tier 3 characters that are not that good. It's not as sexy. It's probably not going to be characters that cost more, so they're not going to make as much money per update, but I think that's really what a lot of people want. They want to see some of these lesser-known characters have their time in the spotlight. You know, Doctor Strange has been dominant for so long. Why give him a tier 3 so soon? I don't know. There's two sides to the coin. I know a lot of people want Doctor Strange tier 3, and he's a very popular character, and he deserved it for Infinity War and blah, blah, blah. But then on the other hand, you know, Mysterio really could have deserved a tier 3. Even Electro or Sandman or Dr. Octopus. There's so many characters that are underused, and to see some really cool villains get a tier 3 would be amazing. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what do we do with Doctor Strange's tier 3 skill? And this is an interesting conversation because he's a very unique character. He's a special boy, as the kindergarten parents would say. Now, here's the thing. It's all speculation, of course. It's just my opinion. But because Doctor Strange is in a very unique position, we might be seeing a very unique tier 3 skill. Now, having said that, what am I talking about? Well, his 5th skill gives him cooldown reduction. It reduces the cooldown on all of his other skills, 1, 2, 3, 4, down to 1 second. That means that, theoretically, I mean, I haven't done the math on how much each skill adds towards the tier 3 bar, but just based on my feeling, I think that casting 5, and then 4 cancel 3 cancel 2, 4 cancel 3 cancel 2, will probably be enough to get the tier 3 skill charged. So you'll probably be able to charge the tier 3 skill every 5 to 7 seconds, depending on your cast speed, like your attack speed, depending on how fast you press the buttons, and depending if he gets interrupted or whatever. So with that being said, he will have by far the fastest tier 3 charge up of any character. No kidding. He'll probably be able to charge up his tier 3 skill, you know, every rotation. Usually characters take 2 full rotations of their 5 skills before they can cast 6. You know, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then 6 on the next rotation, or 4 cancel 6 or whatever. Doctor Strange, not the same. So that's the first kind of hurdle that they have to tackle mechanically. If they just give Doctor Strange a good tier 3 skill and they don't consider that, it could be a big problem. Now, what could they do for Doctor Strange's tier 3 skill? And this is the really interesting part for me, because on the one hand, they could make his tier 3 skill bad. That's just straight up an easy fix, because if he's going to spam it constantly, make it do less damage, make it less impactful, because he's going to get to do it more. But that's honestly not very sexy. On the other hand, they could make his tier 3 super powerful, and then he's going to be able to spam it constantly. So they could give the tier 3 some drawbacks, like it's not an iframe and it doesn't have iframe ignore. So if the tier 3 skill doesn't have iframe ignore and it's also not an iframe, it's easily ignorable or interruptible by iframes. That would make it really frustrating to play Doctor Strange's tier 3 skill and to use it. So I'm not really sure exactly how they're going to tackle it. There's also some, you know, wilder ideas that I have. Like, for example, his tier 3 skill could be a one-time effect. So rather than it being a skill that you cast every, you know, 20 seconds, but in Doctor Strange cases, it's like every 7 seconds. Instead of being like that, it would be something that once you activate it, it just becomes active for the rest of the battle. So let's say his tier 3 skill is the Eye of Agamotto, and he activates it, or maybe it's, you know, the Time Stone. His tier 3 skill is called the Time Stone, or Infinity Gem, or whatever. And then when he activates that, it slows down everything on the battlefield. It cuts the enemy's attack speed and movement speed by 50%. and it's not debuff, like, you know, it penetrates debuff immunity, it penetrates debuff removal, it penetrates purify or whatever. And then it stays like that for the rest of the battle. So you see the world boss attacking in slow motion, or you see the guys in timeline battle attacking, you know, at half the speed, and then Doctor Strange can do his stuff normally. I don't really know if that's possible, but something like that, or maybe he activates some sort of buff for himself for the remainder of the battle. Maybe he gives himself the chance to revive with his tier 3 skill. You know, maybe the tier 3 skill activates, and if he dies in the next 10 seconds, he will revive. And so you could kind of infinitely revive Doctor Strange, kind of like the Dormammu, I've come to bargain, Dormammu, Dormammu, like that. I think there's some really cool thematic things they could do with his tier 3 skill, where in the right circumstances it's powerful, but it's not something that you would just spam over and over again for damage. Now, in terms of damage, right now Doctor Strange is not a powerful PvE character. It takes a lot less damage to be good for PvP because characters have a lot less HP, but you know, you go into timeline battle and somebody has like 200,000 HP. That's a lot. World Boss Ultimate, you know, 5 million, 10 million, 30 million HP. It's way higher than timeline battle. So Doctor Strange just does not have the juice right now for PvE content. He's nowhere near characters like Jean Grey, even at tier 2 compared to her. He just does very, very low damage. On top of doing low damage, he's not very good for a damage proc. I know you guys have been asking me to try with a rage proc, but he's not very good with a damage proc because of the timing. He doesn't have one skill that does good enough damage to time it with a damage proc, and even with a rage proc, I just don't think he does very good damage in general. So that's kind of the problem. Now, if they make his tier 3 buff, and we're talking partially about this tier 3 skill and partially about the stat bump. If they give Doctor Strange a huge offensive stat bump for tier 3, and they give him a tier 3 skill that does a lot of damage, it could get out of control. So it's something that they have to try to balance out. You know, and so you look at the jump that he takes in terms of his energy attack, and then you try to factor that in based on where he's going to be and how much he's going to be able to spam different abilities and spam that tier 3 skill. The other thing you need to look at for Doctor Strange's tier 3 jump from tier 2 to tier 3 is the stat bump for his HP. The two most important ones are how much damage his tier 3 skill is going to do and how much HP he's going to get. If his tier 3 skill does a lot of damage, he will be good for PvE. Because even though skills 1 through 5 don't do very good damage, you can rack up that tier 3 skill over and over and over again in every 7 or 8 seconds. So in the time that Magneto does one tier 3 skill, your Doctor Strange is going to do 2.5 tier 3 skills. So your damage is going to be off the chain. Amazing. For PvP Doctor Strange, for him to be good for PvP as a tier 3, he's going to need a major HP bump. And you can see he's pretty low right now at 20,600. Let me give you a couple of other examples of characters that got good or bad tier 3 HP bumps. Let's look at Magneto, sadly. So you look at tier 3 Magneto, 20,600. That's right. A tier 3 Magneto has the same base HP as a tier 2 Doctor Strange, level 70. Very cool. Look at his tier 2 HP, 16,800. So as pathetic as that is, Magneto got a 3,000. It looks like a 3,800 HP bump from tier 2 to tier 3. That's pathetic. That's like 10% or something stupid like that. It's a really, really low, maybe it's 20%. It's a really, really low amount of HP to get from tier 2 to tier 3. So if Doctor Strange gets a tier 2 to tier 3 bump like that, he's going to be garbage for PvP. Right now, Doctor Strange is almost good enough to hang with Captain Marvel because his first skill has iframe ignore, but he doesn't have enough HP. So he gets clobbered and one-shotted by her tier, her 4-star, her fourth ability, her photon combo. Now let's look at a character that does get a lot of HP from their tier 3, shall we? Jean Grey. This is going to be exciting. Tier 3 Jean Grey, 19,700 HP. Wow. Tier 2 Jean Grey has less HP than Doctor Strange. Isn't that exciting, guys? Let's see how much HP Jean Grey gets at tier 3. 38,600. That's right. Netmarble thought it was a good idea to double Jean Grey's HP from tier 2 to tier 3. Isn't that so awesome? Magneto gets 3,000 HP. Jean Grey gets 19,000 HP. That's balance. Not only does the character revive, but we're gonna double her HP. LOL. So we basically quadrupled her HP. Good job, Netmarble. So yeah, it's really going to come down to whether Netmarble wants to suck Doctor Strange's toes or not, because they clearly want to suck Jean Grey's toes 24/7. So that is my take on Doctor Strange. A very strange tier 3, but very impressive and very curious possibilities. Is he going to have just a cookie cutter tier 3 skill that does damage? Kind of boring, kind of forgettable, probably missable in terms of whether you tier 3 him. Is his tier 3 skill going to be OP damage and make him a hard hitter for PvE again? Possibly. Is his tier 3 skill going to have some sort of crazy cool combo or some crazy cool effect that can take advantage of, that you can take advantage of in PvP, like time freeze that is, you know, that penetrates debuff. So it time freezes you no matter who you are or what you're doing, iframe regardless. Maybe that's cool and meta for PvP. Anything else is up in the air, but one of the most unique tier 3s, not necessarily one we needed right now because we're all pretty poor unless you're dropping fat stacks on this game, but you know, you kind of take it for what it is, and hopefully Netmarble will be a little bit more generous with the World Boss Ultimate clears. Maybe we can get, you know, more than 5 per day so that you guys can keep throwing all these expensive tier 3s at us and we can actually keep up with them, because you know, it can't just be via Visa and MasterCard and Amex. There's got to be another way. So, with that being said, let me know, are you hyped for Doctor Strange Tier 3 and the Eye of Agamotto and the, you know, the Wand of Watum and the, what's the other one called? Vishanti? Are you excited for Ashanti's album with Ja Rule circa 2001? Hit me up in the comments down below. Is Fat Joe still alive? And if so, do you know where he is? Subscribe if you enjoyed the content, you want to support me, and of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you later today. Take care.